This poem is from the perspective of a college student, a 19-year-old white from Colorado. This by no means speaks for the whole community. Two other notes: it's very sarcastic and very angry. Welcome change. So I started looking into getting my name legally recognized. In other words, legally changing my name. First, I have to get fingerprinted twice by both state and federal organizations, which makes sense if a person wanted to escape justice by changing their name, but there should really be some separate protocols for trans folk, because a lot of trans people, especially trans people of color, are incarcerated, often for those petty crimes people need to survive on the street, often for sex work. Because if you've been kicked out of your house and then denied equal housing, you're more likely to need to do these things to survive. And it just so happens that we queer people, especially trans people of color, are kicked out of our homes and then denied legal housing. So fingerprinted by the very people who incarcerate my trans family. Oh, and it costs money. After that, I have to wait for 90 days before I can go to a court to show them my newly made criminal and government records and the name I'm getting recognized by the law. That court appearance also costs money. Then, I get to put in a classified ad in 3 widely read newspapers in the state declaring my new name. Yeah, so much for worrying about coming out to my extended family, I get to come out to the whole fucking state. The classifieds also cost money. Then I get to show proof of that to the court, which costs money again. Then I get to go sign a fancy court order with my now recognized name and bam, legal. So I get to change my name with the Social Security Administration, DMV, and all those other government organizations with my name, and my bank accounts and every other group or contract with legally binding that has the wrong name on it, all of which costs money. You know, all these legal hoops and prohibitive fees to change something central to my identity and life reminds me of some other fun experiences for trans people. Changing the gender marker on legal documents. To do that, we have to go through the courts again, but rather than get fingerprinted and announce that shit, we get to be judged on how trans we are by cisgender people, who are, by the way, not trans. Step 1, get hormones, which are really expensive, not always covered by insurance, and in order to get covered for it, we have to prove our gender again. Do you have dysphoria? Good for you, that's step 1. Age of majority? Great. Are you aware of the risks? Let me tell you. So I have to prove that I feel a certain negative way about my body and myself. How the hell do you measure dysphoria? Because last I checked, it feels differently to everyone, and unless my doctor is trans, in which case they wouldn't be this shitty, you don't know what dysphoria feels like. As for the risks, most of that stuff, which is the average chances, abilities, and physicality of cis folk. Yes, testosterone may have an effect on blood pressure, that's a given for cis men. Yes, estrogen will weaken my bones so that they are more like a cis woman's. You don't bring these risks up if a cis man wants testosterone for his sex drive, do you? Or when a cis woman gets estrogen for menopause. No, you only bring this stuff up when a person comes to you and you want to prevent them from aligning their body with who they are. So, after you get hormones, you have to get surgeries, which are fucking expensive and not considered medically necessary, so they aren't covered by insurance. These surgeries are to make our bodies more acceptable to cisgender standards of what male and female are, if it helps you align with your body. Good for you. But not every trans person is the same. We don't all want this stuff. But if you want to change your gender marker on legal papers, tough shit. And of course there are people like me who don't want to change their gender marker because while male definitely doesn't fit and is really fucking wrong, female isn't any better. So, am I not trans? I mean, I'm not binary, that's for sure. And society really hasn't caught on to that yet. I mean, it's not like a major part of white colonization of the world was the erasure of indigenous cultures and forcing societies to abide by rigid categories of male and female only. No, wait. And why are we changing our gender markers anyway? I mean, it's not like we were assigned 1 of 2 categories based on how our fucking genitals look and expected to live in these rigid boxes of gender or anything. No, wait. And then there's intersex people like me, who were born with a body that doctors couldn't put into M or F, so they cut into me and forced my body into one of those categories without my consent and without telling my parents. Oh yeah, and that was and is totally legal to do, by the way, no repercussions. And then there's pronouns. If you thought getting accepted was hard before, try telling people that you go by he and not she, or even better, that you go by they. God forbid you identify with Z or here. We get to get called the wrong thing every day, and the strangers judge us as if it were their business. And something so simple, so central to our identity suddenly becomes a hardship or a special snowflake thing. How invalidating. How dehumanizing. How utterly hateful. If you're lucky, you might even get called it. And all of that is just the official recognition. Even if you get through all of that, trans people still lack basic protections in getting and keeping a job, getting and keeping housing, education, personal safety, health coverage, and fundamental human rights. We have a general life expectancy of 35, lower if you're a person of color, and we have a staggeringly high suicide rate. And we're murdered on the street, with no one batting an eye. And the murderers can just use the trans panic defense, which is when they figured out we were trans, they went temporarily insane and killed us. And you know what? Over 98% of the time, that flies and the killer walks free. So when Matthew Shepard was murdered 18 years ago, his killers used the gay panic defense, and it very quickly lost credibility. And yet, here we are, when over 100 trans people are officially killed every year, and the number is much higher than the government tally, the same defense is fine. On top of that, suddenly, a rich, white, conservative trans woman is hailed as the icon of our community in 1 year, when trans people of color have been weathering the media circus freak show for years? Sorry, folks, Caitlyn Jenner doesn't speak for any of us. She speaks for herself. Not that I'm ungrateful that a conventionally accepted binary trans woman is getting attention, when all of the above is still definitely going on, and people like me are almost totally invisible. No, it's cool. I like being invisible. It means I get to deal with all this shit, and my place in the community, and my very existence is called into question. Of course, all of this hits harder on those trans folks who are also poor, people of color, and immigrants. Welcome to being trans in America. It's not all bad. Yeah, we've got a hell of a long way to go, and we've got some hard battles to fight, and the wider queer community doesn't accept us, and calls us uppity for demanding human rights, and we get to worry about how long we're going to live, and the medical community has decided they know us better than we do, and then complain that they aren't trans specialists, and then there's the feminists who refuse to accept trans people and uphold the colonial and patriarchal ideas of gender norms. It's not great, is it? But it's not all bad. We look out for each other, most of us do anyway, and we have a proud legacy, a warrior's lineage, like Marsha P. Johnson, who threw the first brick at the Stonewall riots, and Sylvia Rivera, who co-founded STAR and other movements which thrust queer folk into politics and civil rights movements, and Miss Major Griffin Grayson, who until recently was the head of a major organization working with incarcerated trans people of color, and who continues to work for the community, and Laverne Cox, who does not speak for the whole community, but who is a hell of a lot closer to it, and Janet Mock, who is a living warrior like our predecessors, and hey, John Oliver did a really good job of covering trans rights issues on Last Week Tonight. And we look out for each other. When no one else does, we listen, we cry, we struggle. When everyone is calling you the wrong name, using the wrong pronouns, erasing your identity, denying who you are, trying to bring you down, trying to kill you, trying to force you into those boxes, we refuse. We call you by your name, we use your pronouns, we remind you of your strength, and we stand by you, as long as you need. Because we're in this fight together, and we all need each other in our own individual way. We share some experience. So when you are beaten, we come with bandages. When you are killed, we light candles and cry so the stars know what has happened. When you are born and assigned without consent, we wait patiently for you to figure out who you are, and we welcome you with open arms. When you are born intersex and mutilated, we stand up and shout, and we stand and wait for you to figure it out. When you are intersex, you are not alone. When you are trans, you are not alone. We are here. We are a community, and we stand together. Welcome to this world, my trans sibling, my trans child. Welcome, my family.